about some of the hiccups that can happen during the wedding day. And today I wanted to spend a little bit of time chatting about what actually goes into a wedding. And I've got some notes up here, so we'll go through this. Um, I thought we could spend, the title of this week is going to be 5 Reasons Not to Follow Everyone Else. We've been spending a lot of time on this, thinking about trends and what's coming up for 2026. I think we've got what do we got left? One, two, three. We've got 4 weddings left going into this year, and then we turn our attention towards the 2026, which we're all excited about. We've got another crazy year, and a lot of times people talk to us about, how do you get great pictures? How do you get a great wedding captured? And so I think there's a couple of different camps. And today I'm going to definitely talk to you about the way I see things trending and the way that we are kind of moving our business into. So whether, depending on where you're at in the stage of your wedding, there's no wrong part to this. This is just going to be my opinion. And let's run down a few of these. And so I had talked about the top 5 reasons not to follow everyone else on your wedding day. And so as you're planning and as you're working with your planners and as you're working with your friends and your parents, you're going to get so many opinions, I guess is the word I want to use, right? And as you're thinking about that, here's some reminders that I would have you dive into. And I think the big one, I know when we're selling and I'm talking to our clients, trends fade and memories don't, is what I want you to remember on that one. And we've been doing this about 16 years. And so as you're thinking about your day, I think, people say, what kind of style are you? What are you doing? Just remember that there are some really cool trends that are going on. But I think some of the over top ones, what I've kind of seen, like I said, over the last 10 to 15 years, is that when time passes, and now it's been 10, 15 years, some of those things could look quite dated, and some of those may even look a little bit cheesy. And so I'll speak specific to photos and video, because this is really a big one on the trends fade. So, right now we see tons of wedding videos that are just filled with slow motion, right? I mean, slow motion, fast transitions, get your attention, get your attention, get your attention. And I get it. I think that's, we use some slow motion. We use some drones. We use definitely effects, but I try to keep that limited. And the main reason for that is, we talk about this. It's really hard to tell a good story in photo and video. It's very easy to cover the day. It's very hard to tell a good story of the entire day, both in photo and video, and you really got to have your act together. So when you overplay the slow motion, or in my opinion, and when you overplay the drone, though it looks really pretty, it's not really telling the story of who the two of you are. So when we do the cufflinks and we do the tie, which, believe it or not, we do it a lot. I've actually told our group, man, chill out on that. We're doing it way too much. You get your films, year 3 goes by, you've got your kids, if you want kids, right? You start looking back on it, and it kind of becomes those films that are cliche that you're not sure if you want to show your friends because it's so dated. The same thing with photographs. Y'all remember 10 or 15 years ago, and not picking on anybody, but those super dark brown, almost rustic photographs that were really, really trendy. And now you can't find it anywhere. So I would just say that when you're thinking about your wedding day, especially photo and video in particular, really think about what it is that you would like long-term. And I definitely tell all of our clients that video especially is for long-term, 100%. Being able to hear the voices of your parents, grandparents, as, people get older, pass from this earth, being able to jump in and listen to those things and have those memories recorded, I think is super important. So like I said, as we go through it, Number 5 was trends fade and memories don't. So don't forget that. Number 4, crowdsourced decisions dilute the meaning. And that literally gets back to family and friends. It's kind of like when you first tell someone that you're pregnant. This happened with my wife a bunch, and all good intentions for sure. But everyone has their own take on how you should be a parent, right? I'm sure any of us parents that are listening to this can definitely attest to that as we started to have children. So it's kind of the same thing here. We've definitely seen before in weddings where there can be a tremendous amount of pressure placed on the bride and groom, especially, or our couples, because there's lots of bride and groom couples as well, but placed on the couple from the parents, from friends. So you have two different type of opinions. You just have overall opinions. You should do this and you should do this, or I did this at my wedding. You should think about doing this at your wedding. And here's a really cool thing. We have worked with, a ton of couples. I think our record right now is we have 4 siblings that we've shot in one family. And I think we have 7 connected family members between brothers, sisters, and cousins. Those 7 are from one grouping and the 4 is from one family. And when we did those weddings, we really talked to them about, make them uniquely your own. And they really were. And so as you're going through and deciding on what you want for your wedding day, and sometimes, our parents are helping us a lot of times with the wedding, and sometimes they feel like they should have an opinion because they're putting in money. And I would challenge us to say, hey, state your intention really, really clear on what's important to you. And if it comes down to that, just say, you know what, I would rather not spend the money here, or I completely understand what you're saying, but this is really the way we want to go with it, and put your foot down. And I would say we're seeing a lot of that for 2026. We're seeing, in a lot of the weddings, we're seeing smaller bridal parties, and some of them there are 0 bridal parties, which is really, really interesting. Kind of excited about a couple of those, to be honest. There'll be a very different take on how we record and capture the day, which we're super stoked about. But just remember that. Sit down with whoever you're marrying, right? Sit down with your spouse to be and really work through the list. How many people do you really want at your wedding? That's the first thing I'd say. And then how much do you really want to spend on this wedding? And then when it comes to colors, colors, table layout, all that, of course, lean on the professionals for that. Have them show you lots of different options for that. But just remember that it is your wedding day, and try not to put so much pressure on yourself, especially from other people. I can tell you from experience that the best weddings that we've been a part of are definitely the ones where the couple's in control. And what I mean by that is they really outlined the day that they wanted to, from the food. We have tons of people doing food trucks, which is kind of a cool take. Still have plated going on as well, which is really neat. That's we don't see that all the time. Obviously, most people are still doing buffet, but not always. And then the flower arrangements are all over the place, and they're just so beautiful. Some people are going completely minimalist. Some people are really going extravagant and coming back in other areas, but just make sure it's yours. Just make sure you've got to spend some time to make it yours. I think it'll play out better for you if you do that. Tradition without intention becomes obligation. Doing something because that's how it's always been done is not the same thing as honoring it. I think this one is another one. Tradition should serve you and not trap you. So if there are traditions within your family, and I think you guys can see where we're going today with this, is, we spent a little time talking about this last week on some of the trappings that can actually happen throughout the day when you're trying to have a stress-free wedding. We'll spend a lot more time talking about timelines and how your day actually occurs. But this is another great one that, again, in this day and age going into 2026, when we're looking back on those traditions, here's a perfect one, bouquet and garter, right? Now, this tradition has been, I won't say over with, but definitely the last 2 years. Uh, Bouquet toss, yes. Garter, not so much. Maybe one or two or three weddings out of 200 this last year. Where if you asked me that question 4 years ago, it would have been about 50-50, and 8 years ago, it would have been about 75%. And then 15 years ago, man, probably, yeah, 90%. Everyone was still doing garter, but that has kind of gone to the wayside. Sometimes the bouquet toss has gone to the wayside. Here's another tradition. The announcement of cutting the cake. We had tons of wedding this year where after the first dances, or some point after that, food, the first dance, the planner would come and get us and just tap us on the shoulders and say, hey, we already knew it was coming, but hey, we're moving over to the cake. A lot of times the DJ or band would not even announce it. They just wanted that fun little moment to cut the cake, but they weren't bringing the family around to surround them and celebrate that moment. As a dad, I hope my daughter and son want to do that, but then again, they may not. They may just want to just knock it out really quick. So as you're looking down the traditions that you've seen from your family, and again, this kind of ties in with family and friends, just remember that no tradition is sacred to your wedding. And that's the beautiful thing about you getting to plan your own wedding, is you get to decide which traditions you want to do and honor and which ones you don't, so that you're not following through on something that you're just not really, that's not really important to you. The number two, as we come up to this, and we can't talk enough about this one, and that is the best moments are the unscripted ones, right? And when we talk about, now I got to be careful on this, because when we talk about, rigid timelines, copied formats, right, where there's just no room to breathe whatsoever. Now, that can be a tricky one, right? When we think about unscripted moments, what we're really talking about then is you need time in your wedding schedule to breathe. I've definitely seen it on both sides. I've seen it where the couple just has their laundry list, right? Like they want a first look with dad, and they want a first look with the bridesmaids, and they want a first look with the grandparents, and they want a first look with their spouse to be. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't try to do it in 4 hours. I mean, in 4 hours. You could definitely do it in 4 hours, in 4 minutes, right? The key there is, when you're looking at your schedule, is to not have everything so loaded that there's no time to breathe within that schedule. So that's one thing, is just having these type of events scheduled. That goes for the first look, that goes for first dances, all of those types of things as well. So give yourself time just to be whoever you are. And so when we talk about unscripted moments, we're actually talking about like when you're just hanging out in the bridal suite or the groom suite, when you're just hanging out with friends after the ceremony during cocktail hour, those moments during the night when you're engaging with your friends or visiting a grandparent, right? Like kneeling down, making sure that you don't have everything so scripted that by the time the night is over, you really didn't get the opportunity to spend any time with anyone. And that's definitely something that we want to make sure that you're going to be able to have time to do, right? So just keep that in mind. Other best moments, we definitely have couples that sometimes within their schedule actually go take that private dinner or a private walk. Great time to do that is right after the couple portraits, where you've kind of been going. Usually when you're doing couple portraits, you've like gotten ready, done a first look or not done a first look, done all those pre-pictures, had your ceremony. You're probably starving by then. You've done all your family pictures where you're definitely still in a haze from the day, right? And a lot of people will take that time right then, right after to just kind of disappear for 10 or 15 minutes. It's a really cool thing to do. Kind of reset, get yourself ready for, I call it like part one and part two of a wedding day. first part is all the way up through the family pictures. And then the second part is kind of the big party once we start cocktail hour and move into all that. So just make sure you give yourself a minute to have those moments captured where you're just being you. I would love to see more of that at weddings, to be honest, just a little bit more free flow, like a big party, like in the old days, when weddings used to be in your backyard and you would just hang out and it would be potluck. Isn't that crazy? And I think you can still take elements from that. And then I think your photo and your video from that is going to be just so much more authentic to the day. So when you are looking back 10 years from now, you really have some great moments. And then I'm going to tie all this together. And the last one, which, I spent a long time trying to write these out to see what would not make sense to everybody. And that is, it's the one day that should actually reflect you. And that kind of, again, ties everything in that we're trying to talk about. Not your parents, not Instagram, not the industry, use those as guidelines. And I will say for 2025, most of the clients were really on top of this, and I see that. If you want to know a trend that I actually see is that I'm kind of burned out on the word authentic. I guess that was the word I'd want to use, but true to yourself. Yeah, I guess authentic is the word. Authentic. We used unscripted, with your, without intention, making it what you want for the day, letting it be your opinions. And we're seeing a lot of this where it's really reflecting your vision. So again, from the colors to how long you want it to be. Oh, that's another thing we've seen this year. Even the length of the reception. We've seen this quite a few times, especially for what we'll call a destination wedding. And what I mean by that is destination wedding a lot of times means we travel to a different state, but it can also mean that people that are getting married in Austin, maybe their families are coming from the north or coming from the East Coast, the West Coast. And so Austin is actually the destination, right? We've had a ton of clients this year that are not doing an exit. They're like, we may do a fake exit if we feel like we want to have that captured, but for the most part, they actually want to stay and hang out because they have so many people that are visiting that they don't want to run off in a car and then they're off for the end of the night because they've got a ton, like I said, a ton of people that came a long way to see them. So that's kind of a neat trend and people wanting to do what they want to do. I think the same goes for the food, the speeches. I'm a big proponent of, let your parents talk when we talk about doing things that are a little bit different. A lot of time it is the, maid of honor, best man. I don't disagree with that. But that's another moment that's very traditional. And I kind of make a joke about this all the time. I'll tell my bridal party, I'm like, hey, you may not even like people in your bridal party 10 years from now. Chuckle, but your parents, to have them be able to get up there and say something really incredible about you on your wedding day. I can tell you that 10 or 15 years later, 20 years later in your life, that's going to be the most important speech that you heard. And if you can't do it on your wedding, we definitely talked to a lot of people about that's a great time to spend a little extra and actually have video come out to your rehearsal dinner because there's always so many great toasts going on there. So that's for another take. We can definitely talk about add-ons that people are doing and what kind of seems to be popular at this point. So this week you kind of get the whole framework of all of them, and I'll go over them again real quick. I couldn't write better titles, but I'll work on that. Just remember that your trends fade. Nothing wrong with it. I want to be careful when I say that as well. Some people love trends. And so that goes back to make it your wedding. So man, if you're totally into slow motion and you want crazy flash and, everything's said and you're staring at the camera the whole time, do it. Like do it to the nth degree, right? We can totally flip that as well. You can make a trendy wedding so trendy that it's now untrendy, if that makes sense. We've had a lot of clients this year that want to talk to the camera, that, you know, and in a weird way, it's more like, it's not like it's kind of like a documentary, but not like a documentary. It's more like the Uncle Bob films, when, you know, Uncle Bob used to walk around with a big video camera on his shoulder. It's much more personal and real, and just adding in that element to it, kind of more the fly on the wall, lower cameras. I see this coming for 2026 big time. You know, the more opinions that are involved, the less intentional the day becomes. And so that's really, again, just reminding you that you're the captain, right? You're the boss of your wedding, whether you're paying for the whole thing or not, whether you're not paying for any of it. Have that discussion early on that, hey, I really appreciate you helping financially, but we want to make these decisions what it is to us. Now, if you're saying you want 700 people, that's a little bit different story. You know, do your best to lean in on that, but that's where you kind of have talks about what makes the most sense for everybody. Traditions, do the traditions that matter to you. Pull back if you decide you want to. Don't let anyone influence you on something you may not want to do or that you want to do different. I think that's a really cool one too. Just, again, kind of making it your own. I can't tell you enough about unscripted. That really helps with, again, I'll think of a better word for next week, the authenticity of your wedding day. And really what I'm talking about is, again, when you're looking back on these photographs and this film, in the future, having the moments that aren't just so scripted and so played out, I think are really going to make a huge difference in the, in the authenticity of the film. It'll be something that you'll want to go back and watch over and over again, versus something that may become trendy or cliche, or, you know, everyone's films and photos look that way. And I think that's what I would be looking for. And then again, self-reflection, number one. That even goes back to what you're wearing. And that's kind of a tradition as well, too. This year we've seen everything, man, to be honest. We've seen, what do you want to call them? Not Hawaiian shirts, but kind of like Hawaiian shirts. We've seen jackets with no ties. We've been to black tie affair. On a bridal party, man, we've seen so many different takes. Every bridal dress being a slightly different color with different looks, wedding dresses that aren't white, like you name it. So again, just push the envelope on that, really sit down and decide what that day can look like for you. And then, of course, surround yourself with professionals that can help you bring your wedding day to fruition. I think it's the word I wanted to say. So anyway, that is what I wanted to talk to y'all about this week. I hope you got a couple of bits of information. Again, this is Will Harrington. I'm the owner and creator of Photo House Films. I won't be saying that too much longer because you're going to know me. And if you need advice, we're definitely here to help you, no matter where you're at in the stage of your wedding. You can holler at us on any of our social channels. And looking forward to next week. Ooh, next week's going to be crazy. Let me go look at this. Next week will be Christmas Eve, and I'm still going to jump on. I haven't decided on the topic. This is all new. So next week, I'm hoping we can add in some brand and text and lower thirds and start bringing in media. And then soon we'll start having interviews with other professionals. We can have some banter back and forth, but I appreciate you watching and listening, and really looking forward to next week. We will have a Christmas Eve special edition, our third recording. And until then, I will say thank you for joining me. Have a great week, and we will see you next week.